age of conscious consumption. People want products that are better for the planet, but they're not willing to sacrifice on things that they expect, like performance, convenience, and style. So this really begs the question, which is how do we get consumers and businesses to shift from doing what they're doing today and purchasing what they're purchasing today to purchasing products that are sustainable and sustainable business practices. So when you think about what really drives the decision-making process that a consumer has, or a business has for that matter, it really comes down to thinking about what is their main deciding factor in making that purchasing decision, right? And what we find is that people typically are only willing to switch what they're doing if the new product that they're purchasing is superior to the product that they have today. And being sustainable is a bonus, but that's only normally a secondary factor to actually purchasing that product that's superior. And so what it really means is that if you want to deliver a product that's better for the planet, it has to also be better in areas like performance, like reliability. And in summary, what that really means is that people will only make that switch if the new product is better. So I think a really good example of this is if you think about the electric vehicle industry. So for a very long time, electric vehicles were available in the market, and those EVs that were in the market were perceived, and rightfully so, as being inferior in many different metrics that people care about compared to gas-powered cars. For example, they were slower, they were very difficult to maintain, they actually created, challenges around range because you would have to keep charging them frequently. And as a result of that, people were very hesitant to make the switch. Then something really interesting happened. In 2012, Tesla released the Model S. And this was really pathbreaking because the Model S was not positioned as a vehicle that was merely more sustainable. The Model S actually was faster than most sport cars available at the time. And it completely changed the paradigm around how people thought about an electric vehicle. It had great range, it was extremely fast, it had driver assistance features that made it feel like a high-tech offering. And from that point onwards, what we've seen happen in the electric vehicle market is that people perceive EVs as actually being a superior option in many cases to gas-powered vehicles. So people didn't really make that shift from from gas-powered vehicles to EVs because they perceived the EVs to be inferior but sustainable. They only made that shift when they realized that EVs were actually a superior value proposition. So where is this all rooted in? It's really rooted in this idea in behavioral economics, which is called risk aversion, which is that people hate to lose things that they are used to. They always want to go for something that's reliable, and they're unwilling to change for something that might give them a long-term benefit if they don't get those things that they're typically used to because of the reliability. And so in summary, basically they dislike losing things that they value. And so you can only make someone shift from what they're doing today to something different tomorrow if they're getting something better. And in the process, you're delivering them additional benefits that may have long-term value, like sustainability. So really what this means is that when you think about it from a business standpoint, it's really the same story, right? Which is that businesses are not going to be willing to change what they're doing from what they're doing today unless they can retain profits, they can retain the efficiency that they have as a business, and sustainability comes as a bonus in that process of switching over. And so just to kind of rewind a little bit and tell you a little bit about myself. So my journey started back when I was in the 7th and 8th grade at BIS. I was really interested in CAD. And that interest in CAD over time grew into an interest in advanced manufacturing. I was fascinated by how things are made and got interested in technologies like 3D printing, laser-based manufacturing, robotics, and ultimately software-defined manufacturing as well. And so today, what I do is I run a company called King Children, which is based in New York. And what we do is we use these advanced manufacturing technologies that I've grown my interest in over the years. And we deliver to businesses a value proposition where we tackle this exact problem of loss aversion at a business-to-business level. So we work with brands, and what we do is we basically use technologies like 3D printing, robotics, laser-based manufacturing, and software-driven manufacturing to deliver those brands a value proposition where they can release better products into the market that are basically better for their end consumers, but at the same time are far more sustainable. And so what we're able to do is we're able to basically tackle this loss aversion conundrum that I talked about earlier at a consumer level, at a business to business level. So what does this really mean in practice? The brands that we work with are typically high performance brands. So for example, we work with a brand called Raya Sport. They're the leading performance eyewear brand for racket sport players. So these are basically like, think tennis, pickleball, paddle, and the glasses that people are wearing for those kinds of sports. Another brand that we work with is called Pila Sport. They are the #1 precision eyewear brand in the world for shooting eyewear. So they're like the favored brand for athletes at the Olympics. If you guys watch the Olympics recently, you would see that almost like 80% of them are wearing glasses by a brand called Pila Sport. So these brands that we work with, what we're able to deliver to them is first and foremost a software-driven solution where they can design products that are superior for their athletes and do a ton of testing. By allowing them to do all this testing in a software environment, they don't have to actually go into production with any of these products, and they can learn a lot about what they're bringing to market before they bring the product to market. This eliminates a lot of waste and unnecessary overproduction that comes with bringing products to market that ultimately people don't want. The second thing is that using a software-driven approach at the very initial stages of product development allows us to feed into an advanced manufacturing-driven supply chain. So like I mentioned earlier, if you think about technologies like 3D printing, robotics, and software-based manufacturing, what you're really able to do with these technologies is offer a value proposition to the brand where they have a few things that really make a difference to them. So for example, 3D printing eliminates minimum order quantities, which means that brands have the ability to have a ton of flexibility in what inventory they're carrying. That flexibility translates into the ability to iterate on products faster because they don't have huge inventories of products as they learn more about what the market wants. But it also is much more sustainable because that means they don't have a ton of product that goes unsold if they decide to launch a new product into the market. If you think about robotics, what that really does is it enables a lot of flexibility in the entire production process. So when you want to launch new versions of products, you can quickly get up and running because you can program the robots to basically assemble the new product much faster. And when this all comes together, what we're able to do is we're able to use technology to provide those brands with a solution that delivers a much more high performance product. But the bonus is that it's also sustainable because in the process, they're saving a ton of wasted inventory. They're also saving a ton of carbon dioxide emissions associated with all of the stuff that goes into the warehousing of inventory that doesn't get sold and the scrappage of that product as well. And so I guess in summary, what I would like to do is I would like to kind of, challenge everybody here and anyone who's interested in sustainability that moving forward, when you think about your strategy towards how you want to drive sustainability in the world, to always think from the standpoint of, am I actually also tackling this question of loss aversion? Am I delivering something, whether it's to a person or whether it's to a business, which is superior but also sustainable? Because that's the only way it'll ultimately succeeding in the market. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Sahir.
Sorry.
We'd now like to open up the floor for questions.
Sorry.
What has been your biggest challenge or pushback in maybe scaling the business or getting your first few customers?
Yeah, I think that's always a very very like insightful question. I think in our case, getting the right balance between being able to find those value propositions for the right customers right? Because when you use something like advanced manufacturing technologies like we're using, there's so many potential theoretical advantages you could offer. So being able to find exactly who values that value proposition. So in our case, we work a lot with performance brands in the eyewear space and wearable space, where they see a lot of value in being able to launch new products fast, iterate on products quickly, because that ultimately means that they're giving that edge to the athletes that are ultimately using the product. And so I think finding that exact fit is what I would say was the most like challenging part about what we were able to overcome.
When you're running your business, what incentive do you give to the company? Usually the more sustainable option like costs more for the company.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and it's linked kind of to the previous question, which is who values what you're delivering to them, right? So if you go back to the theory of loss aversion, right, which is that as a business are not willing to let go of something that you have right now. If you're focused on delivering performance products, then very often the cost is not the biggest factor that you care about, because if you can deliver a better product to the athlete, they're willing to pay for it. And so that's like a big part of it. The other part of it is that when you use a technology like ours, even if your individual unit as a brand costs more at wholesale, you have a much higher blended retail price, because you don't have all this dead stock and inventory that you then have to end up selling at discounts. And so what happens is that from a brand standpoint, your margins actually are much better when you have a model that's more flexible. And so this is how you're able to safeguard the brand's profits, which is something that we discussed earlier that they really care about, right? While being able to deliver a product to them that might be a little bit more expensive, but the end consumer is happy, so the brand is happy because they're delivering a better product, and they're able to safeguard their profits.
Okay, we'll be taking one more question.
Yeah, thank you so much for your speech. It was very interesting. My question for you is, to what extent do you believe that the technology used was ahead of its time, and how did you really trust this process to get to where it is right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think in our case, we did a lot of development at the like base technology level. So we have patents when it comes to the actual manufacturing process that we use. And so I think you have to be realistic about what consumers want, right? It goes back to the question of what is better, right? Just doing something for the sake of it because you're using a new technology is another example of not delivering a superior value proposition that either a consumer or a business cares about, right? So in our case, we actually had to develop technologies that relate to advanced manufacturing and laser-based manufacturing that enhanced what the product could be in market in order to be able to overcome that hurdle.
Thank you so much, Mr. Zaveri, for sharing your valuable insights with us here tonight.